It's that time. Welcome to Roadmap, how to take 3 listings a week until you're ready for more. Each week we interview a great agent consistently taking several listings each week, and we have an exciting guest today. We encourage you to take notes and apply as much of their knowledge as quickly as you can, and then use the copycat principle. Before I introduce our guest today, I want to remind everyone that we are also simulcasting the show on the private Lead Gen Facebook group. They have 52,000 members, so we have a large audience there today as well. And we will be pausing for a commercial message during the show as a thank you to the Lead Gen folks. So let's welcome our guest today from Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C., and parts of Maryland, Mr. Brad Kiger. Welcome, Brad.
Hey, Ren. Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
I'm excited you're here. So real estate's pretty new for you. How long you been doing it?
I was a school teacher in D.C. Was there. Well, my wife and I moved up in 2015 from North Carolina, and I taught there for 2 years. I guess it was 2014 we moved up. I got my real estate license in March 2016, and from there, that summer, June, I just hit the ground running and decided I wasn't going to go back to teaching. So here I am, I guess coming up on 2.5 years in the business.
Wow, 2.5 years, and you really caught fire up there. So really, you didn't know that many people when you moved up there, or did you?
So it's kind of, I look at it as a blessing and a curse. I've actually probably sent more referrals to North Carolina than I've received in Northern Virginia.
Nah.
My brother bought and sold a house. My wife's sister bought and sold a house. My parents are buying and selling this summer. And so, So anyway, I didn't know a whole lot of people, and I kind of had to be a secret agent with my friends, because I didn't want anyone at school to know that, I intended to be a real estate agent and not a school teacher, so I don't want to get fired, So when I started out, I started with Keller Williams. I went through the Ignite program, and they said, start reaching out to your sphere and let everyone know you're in the business. And within an hour, I'd contacted pretty much everyone I knew in Northern Virginia, D.C. So then we got to the FSBOs section and the expired section, and I just started learning scripts, and I just started going on to Zillow and calling for sale by owners. That's how I started.
Wow. Well, and then you've risen up from there. So what's the goal for sales this year?
So my personal goal is 75 units, 75 listings. Our team goal is 200 units.
Wow, that's amazing. And you have a great average selling price up there.
My personal average list price is around 600, and our team average transaction price is around 525.
Wow. That's a nice little commission check, or a nice big commission check. So multiply times 3 for everybody else, huh?
It's a really competitive market because of that. We've got agents with MBAs, we've got attorneys that are agents. It's a very, very tough market for sure.
Yeah, it's aggressive. I know some of the people that you're competing with up there. So and you did like 40 million in sales last year, something like that, something crazy like that.
Yeah, so I came in right at 37 million in sales. That was 67 units, and I sold 52 of those were listings that I sold.
Love it. So you're really focusing on the listings, and you're a recent customer with Vulcan7. So you were using somebody else. Why did you switch to ours?
I've gotten on this quest lately for better data, skip tracing numbers, and I took this investor, like this wholesale training, and it was, they're doing stuff on a totally different level, and so it just wasn't. I had the premier service of another company, and it's like, up until about 4 months ago, and I said, well, what I can do is I can get both. So I had Vulcan7 and the other company, and then my virtual assistant would basically match numbers so that we could get like the golden number, right? Like if it was in both systems, we figured that was probably a good number. And then what we found is that the right number about 80% of the time was coming through Vulcan7. So we ended up dropping the other company.
Yeah. Well, did that make a difference in your sales?
It's really picked up our contact rate, and we are now, we going through October, November, December. It's really hard to tell. It's not the hottest time in our market to be listing properties, and yet we've probably listed probably about 6-8 properties in November and December. So still not too bad. Just a little off of what we usually do.
Not at all. That is great. That's fantastic. And I was milking that for all it was worth. That's a good plug. I love it when somebody goes from something else and comes to ours. And I mean, because you're in a unique position to make the observation of the difference. And apparently there is a good.
No. And the other company I was with for probably about a year and a half. And it's not terrible. It's just not as good.
Yeah, there you go. So I appreciate that a lot. So what's the day look like? How do you start the day?
So it's a little bit different now. I had a daughter 6 weeks ago, right at Thanksgiving. So that's changed my schedule up a little bit.
That'll do it.
Yeah. But I'm getting back into my daily routine. So I read a book called Miracle Morning So my start in 2016 was, like I said, I called the FSBOs, and I would do 4 or 5 open houses every weekend. I would find vacant houses and do them during the week, do them on the weekend. And then I sold about 10 properties, but they're good price points. So I did like $6 million that first 6 months. And then in 2017, I sold 39 properties. For like 22 million. So that was my rookie year. I was rookie of the year then. So yeah, it just kind of started snowballing. So in the very beginning, my schedule, because I was a school teacher, I was used to getting up at 5:30. 2016, end of the year, I hired a coach through Maps, and the first book I read was Hal Elrod's book. And so I started waking up at 5:30. I'd go through the savers, go through the steps of the morning. I'd get in the office around like 7:15. I had a script practice partner, and then I would start dialing right at 7:50 and go through until around 11 o'clock, and then do an hour of follow-up, and then go eat lunch, and then I'd come back in the office, and if I didn't have appointments, I'd start going back to the dialer again. So my day was pretty much lead generate, and if I went out on an appointment, I'd be lead generating. And some of my first listings, I would go on I remember I went on a for sale by owner appointment and didn't get the listing, but I went out and I door knocked the neighborhood after I finished the appointment, and ended up signing a listing. I took the paperwork from the listing that I was trying to get and went out in my car and grabbed it. I said, "Hey, are you looking to sell?" She said, "Yeah, I'm looking to sell." And I said, "When?" She said, "Now." I said, "Great, I have the paperwork in my car." So I went and grabbed it, and we sold it, and I sold it in 2 weeks. So
Nice.
just constantly, just being aware. And so I, getting in the office, and I treated it like a job from day one. I mean, I get in at 7:15. I, work till 7 o'clock at night. I'd work on the weekends, and really just hustled.
Nice. I mean, when you look at it, and I don't know what a teacher's salary is, but if I'm guessing 75 transactions times, what's an average commission check?
Yeah, for my average commission's around 13,000.
13,000.
Mm-hmm.
So that's if it was 10,000, it'd be 750. So about $900,000. Is that more than you're making as a teacher?
Yeah, I would say so. I've actually, I've had transactions where I made, more than half of what I made in a whole year. So like I sold a house that was 1.4 million, and that check was like, 35,000. My last year teaching, I made 60. So,
Nice.
So yeah,
it's a whole new life, isn't it?
It's a different ball game. Yeah, for sure.
So you're looking in the camera, and, there are a lot of people. They are taking 1 listing a month or 2 listings a month at best. And usually it's random. They find a buyer, they sell them a house, and they have to sell a house. They're they're going through that morning routine, calling expires for sale owners, past clients, people they know. They're not going through that. What can you share with the people watching if they want to change their life a little bit and get to where they're, where they're making an extra couple $100,000 a year by developing that? What would you say to them? How could it nudge them in the right direction?
So 2017, I went to my first family reunion, and I heard Diana Kokoska. At that time, I was doing mostly buyer business for my open houses, and she's talking about compound interest, and it was like, you're in a room of 500 people, and I'm sure of Diana, and when she talks, you feel like she's talking right at you. I had that moment, and she talked about being consistent and doing the activity every day, and so and then she, the above all, what you focus on expands. So she said, if you're going to be a listing agent, you need to focus on listings no matter where you're at. If you're in an open house, if you're following up with a buyer lead, you need to ask if they're looking to sell also, and so I went through every class through that week was only about listings. I started doing a ton of script practice, like an hour and a half a day. I had like 3 or 4 or 5 different script partners and would go through it. And my script at open houses was, when someone would walk in, I changed it and I would say, hey, my name's Brad Kiger with Keller Williams. Are you folks here to buy a home today, or are you one of the neighbors that are looking to sell? And so just started getting really intentional about finding sellers, staying consistent with the activity. A lot of people will make the calls, that first round of new calls, but they don't follow up. Most of the listings I take are on about the 6th, 8th, 10th follow-up. Like I just talked to a guy this morning that I've been talking to off and on for over a year now, and we're going to meet next week. It's someone I've been trying to get an appointment with for unexpired for over a year, and so I would say consistency along with good follow-up systems. So I basically have, I have an A, B, and C folder. So if I talk to a lead and there's somebody that, that I think is going to be doing something in the next, now, I put them in my A folder. That's like my hot leads. And I look at them and call them every day. And then I have a B lead, and that's people that are like a week or 2 out, or, a week, 2 weeks to 30 days out. And I call them once a week. And then my C's I call once a month. So I'm just constantly following up with the leads that I have in my database.
Perfect. And and you make some good points, really good points. One of the challenges a lot of the people out there is they have a poor lead follow-up system. And what happens is they forget, and then like, oh my God, I forgot all about such and such. And they drive past the person's house and they see a sign in the yard. So having a good lead follow-up system, I like your A, B, and C. The consistency is important as well. And how do you handle the trap? And I always like to call it the trap. What happens is you get in a groove like you're in, and you're, every week you're taking a listing or two. And then what happens, as we know, is they go down like dominoes. They all go under contract at the same time. All of a sudden, 4 of those people say, I've got to pick out a house immediately. Somebody's got to take those people around. Somebody's got to work the pen to close. And then the agent feels full and they stop looking for business. Does that sound familiar in the process you've been through?
So, absolutely. And I see it all the time. And so what I learned very early on was to leverage different activities to other people so that I could always focus on taking listings. So I've always had a transaction coordinator, and there's tons of companies out there that will do contract to close for a few $100 a file, and you only pay them when they close. So that was my very first. I've never actually coordinated my own transaction. I've always had that leverage.
Perfect.
I don't want to be, someone that is a good transaction coordinator is probably not a great real estate agent. So I gave that job to them. My very first hire was after that was an administrator, 20 hours a week. I paid them something like $12, $15 an hour or something like that. And then they were licensed, so I used them as my showing assistant. So what I would do is I would sit down and have the buyer consultation. And then I would introduce my showing specialist as the buyer specialist, as someone, you get 2 agents for the price of 1. We're always going to be here for you. We can always get you access to properties. And I would pay him a cut of the transaction, a fairly high cut. I'd pay him 25% because I wanted him to be incentivized to provide great service and service those clients. And now we have agents that work with, now we have full-time, we have 2 buyers agents, and that's what they do, is they work with buyers. I've got a full-time administrator and a full-time marketing person. So figuring out in the very beginning that this was going to be a business for me, and I was okay with delegating other tasks. And I always say, if you ever find yourself saying that so-and-so, that no one can do X as good as you can, then you're talking like a FSBO, right?
Yes.
So start acting like a for sale by owner.
I mean, yeah, and to be fair, Brad, on the pen to close, you're talking to them every week, correct? You're calling saying, hey, I just want to make sure so-and-so is taking good care of you on our team, whoever your closing coordinator is, and then ask for referrals, right? I mean, you still talk to them once a week. Same with the buyer. You're working with your buyer's agent. You're calling them once a week to touch in, correct?
Yes and no. I mean, yes, I communicate with them, but right now the transaction coordinator that I have is absolutely phenomenal, right? I mean, I actually have it in her checklist now that she asks for the referrals, and she sends the referrals to us. So
okay,
I mean,
so she's asking every week.
Yeah, she's asking.
You may want to also, to be fair, if you call up and say, I just want to make sure that what's your closing coordinator's name?
Bailey. Yeah, I just want to make sure Bailey's
taking good care of you. Is she? And do you have any questions? And then they go, yeah. Do you know if they've done their appraisal? Let me write that down. Where can Bailey reach you to get that to you? And then, by the way, who else do you know that we can help? When you think about it, pen to close, more people send you referrals than they will after you close. They'll send you more referrals during that pen to close period. They just do.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna. I'm gonna definitely write that down and implement that. That's something that, going forward, we're looking. We're basically doing so much new business. Like 90% of our business last year was new business, and we'd love to, get that shifted more towards 50-50. Get some more of that referral business coming.
Well, you've only been in 2.5 years. You got to build up that database.
I know. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, here you are, close to making $1 million a year. And you're 2.5 years in. That's amazing. So staying on it, continuing to set listing appointments, even though there's all this pen to close business and all these people that need to buy something immediately. And sometimes agents get greedy. They go, well, I sold their $800,000 condo in Alexandria, and they want to buy a $5 million house in Bethesda. I'm gonna work with them. What say you? Are you gonna work with them and stop looking for listings, or are you gonna just change what you pay, or how do you do that?
So right now, what I've done, to this point, I've said no to that business and pushed it to my team, and I take 50%. So actually, on a buyer appointment set, the team gets 60 and the agent gets 40. So I'm more than happy taking my fair share of the 60%, letting that agent take 40%. And letting them go do their job, and then I can keep doing my job.
Good, because I mean, it sounds tempting for an agent, yet as you know, you would roller coaster and would take a long time to build the momentum back up to get into that stride. So as tempting as it is for agents, don't do it, folks. Don't do it. Just do it.
$5 million, though. I mean, maybe for $5 million, I might take that one myself.
Yeah, either that or you say, listen, there are 4 homes you can show them. Take them out and show them the 4 homes. I will pay you $5,000. You're going to make $5,000. Just show them the 4 homes. Either that or I'm taking them out, which, you may have to cut a deal. Yeah. So good deal. Good deal. Well, this has been very, very, very helpful. Any last thoughts for that person out there that wants to make it, that wants to get to that level where they're taking a couple listings every week? Any last thoughts?
Yes.
What do you do when you don't feel like making calls, Brad?
I mean, look, what I would say is figure out why you want to make the money. For me, it was that we couldn't afford to have a child whenever I was on my salary, and then we had some fertility issues, and we definitely couldn't afford that. So that's when I started getting into it, and now that we're rolling, it's like I'm addicted to it, right? Like I'm super, super competitive. So, when I see someone else take a listing, not that I'm envy that, it's like when I lose an expired or if someone else gets a FSBO, it's like I should have had that, right? And so for me, it's just being super, super competitive and building. I find it to be a fun game, just building as big a business as I possibly can. So for me, that's what kind of drives me at this point. And then, what I would say is like practice your scripts, do it consistently and follow up with the leads that you have. I hear people complain all the time that, oh, we only get 2 expireds a day in my market. Oh, we only get, 5. Well, then you got 2 leads to focus on. So focus on them, right? Like, we do other lead generation as well.
I mean, there's for sale by owners. There's plenty of other things to call.
Right. I mean, there's lots of other avenues too, but it's taking that lowest hanging fruit and not just calling them one time, but following up. Because that 6, 8, 10 follow-up is where I generally list most of the properties that we list. So
the money's in that follow-up.
It's in the follow-up. Yeah, you hear it all the time, but it's absolutely true. And we started doing, some different little things with like send out cards where we send out like 5 postcards 5 weeks in a row for our expireds that are in our farm area so that they can get a little, they see the Kiger group 5 weeks in a row. So when we make that follow-up call, it's a little bit more, oh, I've seen some of your marketing,
They don't know why, but they feel like they know you.
Right. I mean, it's a little bit more like branding and awareness. And we just started doing that maybe 2 months ago. So, I mean, that's not something that I would say start right away. It's you can make plenty of money through the phone calls.
Yeah, they don't want to start with that. They want to start with taking 2 listings every week.
2 listings a week. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much my goal each week for my personal production is 4 appointments and take 2. So, so that's what I focus on every week is just getting those 4 appointments and getting 2 of them signed.
Well, congratulations. I appreciate everything, and thank you for being here. And I'm going to read this little commercial piece. Thanks for watching, everybody. And I have these reminders, Brad. If you're watching on Vulcan7 and you want to get involved with the Lead Gen Facebook group, they simulcast our show. They are at facebook.com/groups/got-objections. And I want to thank Aaron Wittenstein, who runs that. He has a program called trajectorynow.com. And finally, if you're watching on Facebook and you're not yet involved with Vulcan7, make sure to sign up at vulcan7.com/leadgen for a very special deal. And I'm going to give you a secret that Brad didn't give you. And Brad knows it. He just didn't want to show all his secrets. He, at 11:30, after he returns calls, he goes to the freezer and gets some delicious Grater's mint chocolate chip. It's the one for listings. This is the one for listings. There are other flavors. Those are for working with buyers. Buyers take time. Listings take skill. So you're going to want the one for listings, Grater's mint chocolate chip. Go to graters.com. You'll find it in your grocer anywhere in North America. Just put in your zip code, find out where you can buy it. If the listing is slow to sell, dig a hole in the front yard, bury it upside down, and that listing will sell just like that. I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you, Brad. And we're gonna check back with you in 6 months, see how you're doing. So thank you again for being here. Appreciate it so much.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week when we interview another great agent taking 2, 3, 4 listings a week. See you then.